June 29th, 1943, Adolf Hitler was sitting in his study at Berghof, and in his hand was a document bearing the signature of Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov. The document had come through Sweden. Neutral diplomatic channels. Top secret. Only a few people knew. The document contained a peace offer from the Soviet Union. The conditions were simple. Germany would withdraw to pre-June 22, 1941 borders. That meant leaving Poland, the Baltic states, and Ukraine. In return, peace. The war would end. Bilateral trade would resume. A non-aggression pact would be signed. Hitler read the document. Once, twice, 3 times. There was no expression on his face. Then he put the document on the desk. He picked up his pen. He wrote a single word on the document. Nein. No. Then he tore up the document. He threw the pieces in the wastebasket. And as if nothing had happened, he returned to other files. In that moment, the fate of perhaps 20 million people was sealed. Because if Hitler had accepted that offer, the war could have ended in the summer of 1943. 2 years early. Millions might not have died. The Holocaust could have stopped. Dresden, Hamburg, Berlin might not have been bombed. But Hitler said no. And no one knows exactly why he said no. Before we begin the story, please hit the like button. It helps us reach more people with these forgotten stories. Subscribe, turn on notifications. On the Germany at War channel, we tell the real stories from the German side of the war. And leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. Now let's get back to the story. February 1943. Stalingrad fell. 250,000 German soldiers died or were captured. One of the Wehrmacht's most powerful armies was destroyed. This was the turning point of the Eastern Front. But the Soviet Union knew the price of victory. Between 1941 to 1943, 10 million Soviet soldiers died. 15 million civilians died. Cities were devastated. Industrial facilities were destroyed. Ukraine's wheat fields were burned. The war was consuming the Soviets. Stalin did calculations. If the war continued, Germany would eventually be defeated. But when? 1944? 1945? Maybe 1946? And how many more millions of Soviets would die? 10 million more? 20 million? And then there was another problem, the Western Allies. Britain and America had not yet opened a second front in Europe. D-Day would happen in 1944. But in 1943, the Soviets were fighting Germany almost alone. Stalin was worried. If the war went on too long, the Soviets would be exhausted. The Western Allies would face a weakened Soviet Union. At the peace table, Soviet influence would diminish. In March 1943, Stalin organized a Politburo meeting. Topic: the possibility of peace with Germany. Molotov, the foreign minister, presented a report. Comrade Stalin, Germany is exhausted. But we are exhausted too. If we offer peace, maybe Hitler will accept. Win-win. Beria, the NKVD chief, objected. Hitler will never make peace. He's a fascist madman. Stalin thought. Then he decided, let's try. Send a secret offer. If Hitler accepts, we win. If he refuses, we lose nothing. April 1943, secret diplomatic contact began. The Soviets couldn't send the offer directly to Germany because there were no diplomatic relations between the two countries. They were at war. Therefore, a neutral country had to act as intermediary. Sweden was the perfect choice. Neutral, had diplomatic relations with both sides, and had mediated in previous wars. The Soviet ambassador in Stockholm met with Swedish Foreign Minister Christian Gunther. The message was simple. The Soviet Union is open to peace negotiations with Germany. Can Sweden mediate? Gunther was surprised, but he was a professional diplomat. Sweden always supports peace. I will convey this to the German side. The Swedish ambassador in Berlin met with German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop. He conveyed the message. The Soviets want peace. They are ready to negotiate. Ribbentrop was suspicious. This is a trap. Stalin is trying to buy time. But still, he reported to Hitler. Because Ribbentrop was under Hitler's command, he had to report everything. When Hitler received the news, his first reaction was anger. The Soviets want peace. Because they're losing. This is a sign of weakness. But then, he thought more carefully. Maybe this was an opportunity. Peace in the East, concentration in the West. Full force against Britain and America. Maybe it would be wise. Hitler ordered Ribbentrop. Get the details of the Soviet offer. What do they want? What do they offer? But don't accept anything. Just listen. May 1943, second meeting in Sweden. This time more official. Soviet diplomats presented a written offer. The Soviet offer consisted of 3 main sections. The documents reached Hitler through Swedish diplomats. Section 1. Territory. Germany would withdraw to pre-June 22, 1941 borders. This meant Eastern Poland, which the Soviets had occupied in 1939, would remain under Soviet control. The Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, would return to Soviet control. Ukraine, Belarus would be Soviet territories. Bessarabia taken from Romania would be Soviet. In return, Germany's pre-1939 borders would be recognized. That is, Germany, Austria, Sudetenland, Danzig, all would be accepted as German. Western Poland, which Germany took in 1939, could remain with Germany. The Soviets were ready to sacrifice Poland. Section 2. Economic cooperation. The Soviets were offering a trade agreement with Germany. The Soviets would sell oil, wheat, iron, ore to Germany. Critical for Germany's war economy. Germany would sell machinery, technology, industrial products to the Soviets, similar to the 1939 to 1941 trade agreement, but on a larger scale. Section 3. Non-Aggression Pact. The two countries would sign a 25-year non-aggression pact. Mutual guarantee. Not a military alliance, but neutrality. The Soviets wouldn't attack Germany. Germany wouldn't attack the Soviets. The offer was very generous. The Soviets were making major concessions. The Baltic states were already under Soviet control, but Germany had gained large territories. Ukraine, Belarus, the siege of Leningrad. All of these would have to be abandoned. But in return, Germany would gain peace in the East. The two-front war would end. Resources would be redirected to the West. Full force against Britain and America, Soviet oil and wheat. Germany's biggest shortage, 1939 borders would be recognized. That is Hitler's Greater Germany dream, partially successful. Objectively, the offer made sense. The German General Staff saw the advantages of the offer. Some generals were excited. This is the way to win the war. But Hitler was thinking differently. When Hitler read the offer, 2 different thoughts battled in his mind. Pragmatic Hitler. This is wise. Peace in the East, victory in the West. With Soviet resources, we'll defeat Britain. Then, 10 years later, we'll attack the Soviets again. Stronger, more prepared. Ideological Hitler, no. The entire war was to destroy the Soviets. Bolshevism is the enemy. Slavs are undermentioned. Lebensraum is in the East. If I withdraw now, my entire ideology becomes a lie. Hitler had had a single vision since the 1920s. As he wrote in Mein Kampf, Germany's future was in the East. Lebensraum, living space, occupying Soviet territories, enslaving Slavic peoples, destroying Bolshevism. This wasn't just a strategic goal. It was an ideological obsession. Hitler's entire worldview was based on this. Nazi party propaganda was based on this. SS training was based on this. If Hitler now said peace with the Soviets, what would happen? Nazi ideology would collapse. After saying Soviets are the enemy, would he now say Soviets are friends? Propaganda would contradict itself. Between 1941 to 1943, millions of German soldiers died for the war against Bolshevism. Now, would he say we're making peace? The party base would revolt. Fanatical Nazis would declare Hitler a traitor. Hitler could see this contradiction. But at the same time, he also knew the pragmatic reality. Germany was losing the war. The two-front war was unsustainable. Resources were running out. For days, Hitler couldn't decide. He sat alone in his study for hours. He studied maps. He read reports. He didn't talk to anyone. Hitler's inner circle was worried. Martin Bormann, his secretary, wrote in his diary, "The Führer is very tense. Something is bothering him, but he won't say what it is." In early June 1943, Hitler organized a small meeting. Participants: General Feldmarschall Wilhelm Keitel, Chief of Wehrmacht High Command; General Oberst Alfred Jodl, Chief of Operations; General Feldmarschall Erich von Manstein, Eastern Front Commander; Gross Admiral Karl Donitz, Commander of Naval Forces; Joachim von Ribbentrop, Foreign Minister. Hitler presented the Soviet offer. "I want your opinions." Keitel immediately responded, "Mein Führer, this is a trap. The Soviets are trying to buy time. We should not accept." Keitel was Hitler's yes man. He always gave the answer Hitler wanted. Hitler wanted to reject the Soviet offer. Keitel knew this, but Manstein thought differently. Manstein was the Wehrmacht's most talented general, strategic genius. He had tried to save Stalingrad, though unsuccessful. He understood the Eastern Front. Manstein spoke carefully. "Mein Führer, militarily, this offer is advantageous. We're fighting on two fronts. Resources are divided in two. If we make peace in the East, we can give all our power to the West. U-boat campaign against Britain. Atlantic Wall against America. Maybe we'll win." Jodl added, "Manstein is right. Strategically, a one-front war is always better than a two-front war. We lost World War I because we fought on two fronts. Now, we're repeating the same mistake." Donitz presented the naval perspective. "The U-boat fleet is fighting in the Atlantic, but our resources are limited. If we get air and naval support from the East, we can cut Britain's supply line. Britain will surrender." Ribbentrop political perspective. "If we make peace with the Soviets, Britain and America will be shocked. Their strategy depends on the Soviets exhausting Germany. If the Soviets withdraw from the war, the Western allies will be alone. Maybe they'll want peace too." For people from 4 different angles came to the same conclusion: accept the Soviet offer. Hitler listened, but there was no expression on his face. Then he asked an unexpected question. "What about ideologically? How do I explain to the party?" Silence in the room. Because this wasn't a military or political question. It was an ideological question, and generals didn't understand ideology. Ribbentrop tried to answer. "Mein Führer, we can present it as a temporary ceasefire, strategic withdrawal, to guarantee victory in the West. Then, 10 years later, we'll attack the Soviets again." Hitler nodded, but he wasn't convinced. The meeting ended. No decision was made. The same week, Hitler had a private meeting with propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels. Goebbels was one of Hitler's closest friends, ideologically aligned, a fanatical Nazi. Hitler showed Goebbels the Soviet offer. "Joseph, what do you think?" Goebbels read the document. His face tensed. Then, he answered decisively. "Mein Führer, this is unacceptable. The entire war has been presented as a crusade against Bolshevism. The German people have believed this for 3 years. Millions of soldiers died to defeat Bolshevism. Now, if we say we're making peace, the people won't trust us. Propaganda will collapse. The party base will revolt. Hitler, but militarily it makes sense. Goebbels, military logic is less important than political reality. If we lose the people's support, we've already lost the war. Peace with the Soviets means losing the people's support." Hitler thought. Goebbels' argument was strong. Because Hitler believed in the power of propaganda. Propaganda had brought Hitler to power. Propaganda was sustaining the war. Goebbels continued. "Also, this is a trap. Stalin is deceiving us. We make peace, then 2 years later, the Soviets prepare, attack again. We'll be at our weakest moment." Hitler, Ribbentrop says we'll attack in 10 years. Goebbels, Ribbentrop is a diplomat, not a soldier. Stalin is smarter. He'll trap us. Hitler was beginning to be convinced. Because Goebbels' arguments aligned with Hitler's instincts. Hitler already didn't trust the Soviets. He already ideologically rejected peace. Goebbels delivered the final blow. "Mein Führer, if you make peace with the Soviets, history will judge you as weak." Hitler tried to conquer the East, but failed, withdrew. This will be your legacy. Unacceptable. Hitler's ego couldn't respond to this argument. Because Hitler wanted to be remembered in history as great. Not weak. Not a failure. When the meeting ended, Hitler had made his decision. But he hadn't announced it yet. June 1943, at the same time, the The German General Staff was planning a major summer offensive, Operation Citadel. Target, the Kursk salient, a bulge in the Soviet lines. If the Germans attacked from north and south, they could cut off the salient, encircle the Soviet army. Supporters of the plan said Kursk would be Stalingrad's revenge. Massive tank battle. German panzers would crush Soviet tanks. Victory inevitable. Hitler had invested heavily in this plan. New Tiger and Panther tanks had been produced. The best divisions had been sent to Kursk. The entire summer had been focused on this operation. And Hitler calculated, if Kursk is successful, there's no need for the Soviet offer, because Germany would regain superiority in the east. No need for peace. But if Kursk fails, then the Soviet offer could be considered. Hitler asked Manstein, will Kursk be successful? Manstein answered carefully, Mein Führer, there's a chance. But the Soviets are preparing. Intelligence reports show they know our plan. They've strengthened their defense. It won't be easy. Hitler, but can we win? Manstein, maybe, but no guarantee. Hitler made his decision. We'll wait for Kursk. If we win, we'll reject the Soviet offer. If we lose, we'll reconsider. July 5, 1943, Operation Citadel began. German tanks attacked the Kursk salient. From the north, General Feldmarschall Walther Model. From the south, Manstein. The first days there was progress, but Soviet defense was far beyond expectations. Minefields, steel tanks, defense in depth. Every kilometer was taken with blood. July 12th, the Battle of Prokhorovka. It was the largest tank battle in history. 1,500 tanks in a single field. German Tigers against Soviet T-34s. Noise, smoke, death. Result, unclear. Both sides suffered heavy losses. But strategically, the Germans couldn't advance. Soviet lines didn't break. July 17th, Hitler canceled Citadel. Because there was a crisis in the West, the Allies landed in Sicily. Italy was in danger of collapse. The tanks needed to be sent west. Kursk failed. Germany lost its best divisions. In the east, they were now on the defensive, and the Soviet peace offer was still on the table. July 29, 1943, Hitler held a second meeting. This time, to make a decision. Participants the same, Keitel, Jodl, Manstein, Ribbentrop, and now Goebbels too. Hitler got straight to the point. Kursk failed. The Soviet offer is still valid. Should we accept? Manstein persistently defended. Yes, Mein Führer. Militarily, it's our only chance. The two-front war is killing us. Ribbentrop supported. Politically, it makes sense too. The Western Allies will be shocked. Maybe we can make peace with them too. But Goebbels strongly objected. No. Ideological suicide. The people won't forgive us. Keitel, as always, looked at Hitler, trying to understand what he would say. After a long silence, Hitler spoke. No, we're rejecting the Soviet offer. Shock in the room. Manstein tried to object, but Mein Führer. Hitler raised his hand, silenced him. My decision is final. The reasons are as follows. First, I don't trust the Soviets. This is a trap. Stalin is buying time. 2 years later, stronger, he'll attack again. Second, ideologically unacceptable. The entire war is against Bolshevism. If we make peace now, all propaganda become the lie. The people lose confidence. Third, withdrawing in the East is a sign of weakness. Our allies, Italy, Romania, Hungary, Finland, will abandon us. They'll say Germany is losing. Domino effect. Fourth, I cannot abandon the Lebensraum goal. Germany's future is in the East. If I give up now, my entire vision collapses. Fifth, new weapons are coming. V-1, V-2 rockets, jet aircraft, maybe atomic bomb. In 1944, we'll turn the war around with these weapons. Manstein made one last attempt. Mein Führer, new weapons are uncertain. But the Soviet offer is certain. Peace now is certain salvation. Hitler looked coldly. No, Manstein. I don't believe in certain salvation. I believe in certain victory. We will continue the war. On both fronts. Until the end. The meeting ended. The decision was made. The Soviet offer was officially rejected. Ribbentrop sent a response to the Soviets through the Swedish channel. Germany is not interested in the offer. We don't want further negotiations. When the Soviets received the response, they weren't surprised. Stalin told Molotov, "I told you. Hitler is insane, not rational. We tried, but he chose his own death." Stalin made his decision. Prepare for offensive. Spring 1944, major offensive. We'll go all the way to Berlin. Historians have been debating this question for years. What would have happened if Hitler had accepted the Soviet offer? Scenario A. Peace in the East, victory in the West. Optimistic German perspective. August 1943, Hitler accepts peace. 2 million soldiers from the Eastern Front are transferred to the West. The Atlantic Wall is massively strengthened. The U-boat fleet receives new submarines from Soviet shipyards. The Luftwaffe concentrates on a single front. June 6, 1944, D-Day. But this time, the Germans are much more prepared. The beaches are full of tanks and artillery. The Allied landing fails like Dieppe. Heavy casualties. 1945, Britain and America request peace negotiations. Status quo peace. Germany dominates Europe. Britain and America don't intervene. Hitler, 10 years later, attacks the Soviets again with a strengthened Germany. But is it realistic? Probably not, because America's industrial capacity was 5 times that of Germany. They would have won eventually. The Soviets would have become even stronger during 10 years of peace. A second attack would be harder than the first atomic bomb. America developed the atom in 1945. Could have used it on Germany. Scenario B. Short-term peace, then chaos. Realistic perspective. Hitler accepts peace. Temporary peace, 1943 to 1945. But real problems aren't solved. Ideological contradiction. Nazi propaganda said, Bolshevism is the enemy. Peace undermines propaganda. People are confused. Loss of allies. Italy, Romania, Finland say Germany is afraid of the Soviets. Switch sides. Western Front. D-Day still happens. Germany is stronger, but is it enough? Unclear. Soviet betrayal. Will Stalin abide by peace? Maybe 2 years later, while Germany is busy in the West, attacks again. Result, chaotic. Maybe the war extends to 1946. Maybe more dead. But the outcome doesn't change. Germany loses. Scenario C. Soviet gain, Soviet perspective. Stalin's real goal was to buy time. If Hitler had accepted, the Soviets rest 1943 to 1945, increase production, reorganize the army. 1945, when the Soviets are ready, they break the peace. Attack Germany, but this time much stronger. Maybe they reach Berlin in 1946 instead of 1945. Same result, but Soviets suffer fewer losses. Conclusion. In every scenario, Germany eventually loses. Because the fundamental problem is Germany's resource shortage. 2-front or 1-front doesn't matter. The combined capacity of America and the Soviets crushes Germany. But Hitler's rejection extended the war by 2 years. And in those 2 years, 15 to 20 million more people died. The Soviet peace offer was kept very secret. Hitler didn't want to leak the information, because if the public learned, they would ask, why aren't we making peace? Those who knew about the offer. Hitler, decision maker. Ribbentrop, foreign minister, managed the Swedish channel. Keitel, Jodl, Manstein, military advisors. Goebbels, propaganda minister, influenced Hitler. Bormann, secretary, saw all documents. Himmler, SS chief, probably learned later. Total, 10 to 15 people. A very narrow circle. After the war, at the Nuremberg trials, some details emerged. When questioned, Ribbentrop mentioned, the Soviets offered peace, but the Führer rejected it. Prosecutors requested details. Ribbentrop said there were documents, but they were lost. During the fall of Berlin, many documents were destroyed or lost. Manstein wrote in his post-war memoirs, in the summer of 1943, there was a peace opportunity. I supported it, but the Führer rejected it for ideological reasons. This was a strategic mistake. On the Soviet side, Molotov revealed in an interview in the 1970s, yes, we offered peace to Germany in 1943. Serious offer. But Hitler rejected it. He was insane. But complete documents never surfaced. There are some diplomatic correspondences in Swedish archives. But the original document with Hitler's handwritten Nein is missing. Maybe it was destroyed. Maybe it's hidden. Maybe it will be found one day. 80 years later, historians are still debating. Why did Hitler reject a sensible offer? Reason 1. Ideological blindness. Hitler was the founder of Nazism. The entire ideology was built on conquer the East, destroy Bolshevism, Lebensraum. If this vision collapsed, Nazism would become meaningless. Hitler sacrificed rationality to defend his ideology. Reason 2. Excessive confidence, hubris. Hitler won tremendous victories 1939 to 1941. Poland, France, the Balkans all fell. Hitler felt invincible. I've achieved the impossible before. I'll do it again. This overconfidence prevented him from seeing reality. Reason 3. Distrust of the Soviets. Hitler never trusted Stalin. The 1939 Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was a temporary tool. Both leaders knew they were deceiving each other. Hitler thought, Stalin won't abide by this peace. He'll buy time, then attack. Maybe he was right. But still, peace would have bought 2 years. Reason 4. Propaganda problem. Between 1941 to 1943, millions of Germans believed the propaganda of crusade against Bolshevism. Peace would make this propaganda a lie. The public would ask, why did we fight for 2 years then? Goebbels explicitly told Hitler this. And Hitler believed in the power of propaganda. Reason 5. Dream of wonder weapons. Hitler believed in miracle weapons. V-1, V-2 rockets. Me-262 jet aircraft. Maybe atomic bomb. In 1944, we'll turn the war around with these weapons. But he was wrong. New weapons came too late and weren't enough. Reason 6. Historical ego. Hitler wanted to be remembered in history as a great conqueror. Hitler conquered Europe. But if he made peace with the Soviets, it would be Hitler couldn't conquer the East, withdrew. His ego couldn't accept this. Reason 7. Circle influence. Fanatical Nazis like Goebbels and Himmler influenced Hitler. Rational generals like Manstein were in the minority. Hitler listened to the fanatics because they said what Hitler wanted to hear. After the war ended, surviving German leaders remembered the Soviet offer. Albert Speer, in his memoirs, 1970, in the summer of 1943, there was a peace opportunity. We rejected it. This was perhaps Hitler's greatest mistake. From that point on, the war was lost. But it continued for 2 more years. Millions died, all the result of one decision. Karl Donitz, during interrogation, 1945, I heard about the Soviet peace offer. I supported it. From a naval perspective, a one-front war was much better. But Hitler rejected it. Why? I don't know. Maybe ideological. Maybe ego. Erich von Manstein, in his memoirs, strategically, Soviet peace made sense. I persistently defended it. But the Führer chose ideological vision over military logic. This was a disaster for the Wehrmacht. Franz Halder, former chief of general staff, 1946, Hitler couldn't think rationally. Soviet peace was a clear opportunity. But he was enslaved to the main camp vision. Vision became reality. And Germany paid the price. But some defended Hitler. Joachim von Ribbentrop, at Nuremberg. The Soviet offer wasn't sincere. Stalin was playing games. If we had accepted, maybe it would have been worse. Hitler made the right decision. But Ribbentrop was trying to protect himself. Joseph Goebbels, before Hitler's death, April 1945, the Führer's decisions were always right. Rejecting Soviet peace was right. Because we cannot compromise on principles. Goebbels maintained his fanaticism to the end. Did the Soviets make the offer sincerely? Or was it just propaganda? View 1. Sincere offer. Some historians believe in Stalin's sincerity. Reasons. The Soviets were truly exhausted. 10 million soldiers, 15 million civilians died. Summer 1943 was uncertain. Kursk hadn't been won yet. If the Germans had won Kursk, the Soviets would have suffered more. Stalin was pragmatic. More than ideology, he cared about survival. Peace was a guarantee of survival. View 2. Tactical game. Other historians believe Stalin was playing games. The offer was to provoke the Western allies. The Soviets can make peace with Germany, you'll be left alone. Britain and America send more aid, or to create division within Germany. Conflict between generals and Hitler. Maybe a coup, Hitler overthrown. The Soviets knew Hitler would refuse. But the offer had propaganda value. We wanted peace, Hitler rejected it. Molotov's 1970 interview. The offer was 70% sincere, 30% tactical. Yes, we wanted peace. But if Hitler refused, we would have propaganda gain. Either way we won. Truth, probably both. Stalin was open to peace, but at the same time, could benefit from Hitler's rejection. June 29, 1943. Hitler rejected the Soviet peace offer. He wrote Nein with a pen, tore up the document, and sealed the fate of millions. That decision came from ideology, from the dream of Lebensraum, from hatred of Bolshevism, from excessive confidence, from historical ego. But that decision was also the collapse of rationality, because militarily, politically, economically, peace made sense. But Hitler chose vision over logic. Vision led to disaster. Between 1943 to 1945, 15 to 20 million more people died. Soviet soldiers, German soldiers, Polish civilians, Jewish prisoners, German civilians. All victims of Hitler's Nein. And today, 80 years later, we ask, why? Why did Hitler reject peace? The answer is complex, but in essence simple. Because ideology was more important than reality. Because ego was stronger than rationality. Because Hitler sacrificed humanity for his vision. And the world paid the price. If this story affected you, please hit the like button. Every like helps us reach more people with these forgotten stories. Subscribe and turn on notifications. On the Germany at War channel, we tell the real stories of World War II from the German perspective. Thanks for watching.